One. So we're
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What's the Tea? This is a new episode today. We have Alberta Powell with us as our guest, and today's tea is going to focus on the topic of grief. Um, Many of you know that there are a lot of grief triggers around the holidays, and so we just wanted to unpack that, provide support for people that may be feeling but also unpack how grief is something that we're experiencing globally because of the pandemic. And there's also grief for there's domestic violence specific grief for those that have experienced domestic violence. And so we want to also talk about that and share some tools, share some perspective, and some practical ideas on how to navigate grief during this time. So, Alberta, welcome back to What's the Tea?
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoy being on here and
Hey.
sharing what information I have with everyone. So thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I know that sometimes it's difficult to come from, being in the office to then being in front of the camera on a live interview. So every time we
Yeah.
have a staff, member do it, it's greatly appreciated that you guys avail yourselves to this. So,
Okay. Mhm. All right. Thanks.
if you don't mind, I know you've been on the T before, but if you don't mind just refreshing everyone's memory and just introduce yourself and what you do at the agency.
Okay. Yes. Again, my name is Alberta Powell. I work at Southside Connections, which is an agency that was comprised of between South Suburban Family Shelters and Apnagar. And we're located on the south side of Chicago to assist with um, the people who may need domestic violence help in this area. So we've been here for about a year now. We're really excited about our caseload increasing. I am the adult victims counselor here, work along with the legal advocate and the case manager in the office. So that's who I am.
Yep. Thank you so much. And then for you
I,
guys,
your sound went off.
oh, can you hear me now, Alberta?
Yeah, it's real faint.
Let me see if I turn some on. Zach, let me
Okay.
know if we have any issues with the sound too. So I'm LaSandra Hutchinson again, a community outreach specialist at South Suburban Family Shelter. I work on the community education team as well as the Southside Connections team. So I play a dual role. And for those of you guys that don't know, Southside Connections is in the Ashburn community, and so basically South Suburban Family Shelter and Apnagar, as Alberta stated, have teamed up to expand our services, our legal advocacy, our counseling, which is free and confidential, as well as our case management to the Ashburn community. And so again, share this video, let them know we are there. Alberta's there, the other people on the team, other staff are there and providing services for anyone that's been impacted by domestic violence. So, okay. So let's get into our conversation about grief, Alberta.
Mhm.
When the team started to talk about what's the tea, and we were brainstorming topics, this idea of the fact that grief tends to be kind of like an undercurrent during Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
holidays. And even though a lot of people may not like to talk about that topic because it tends to be a sensitive topic,
Yes, it is.
yeah, we felt like it would add some value to the community and to the people that watch this to just give some practical ideas and some provide some education around grief. Um,
Mhm.
how would you define grief?
Okay. I think grief is just a natural response to a loss. We're all going to have grief at some point in our lives. It's just a part of life because we're all going to have losses. Unfortunately, everybody will experience different types of grief over their lifetime, and grief has to be unique as the individual who's experiencing it. No two people will share grief the same way. So when we lose something, we have to go through stages associated with grief.
Go ahead. What are those
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
So what are the stages of grief? Can you hear me okay?
Okay, now I can. Okay. Yeah, I can go through each stage and give you just a little brief overview if you'd like. Is that
That
okay?
sounds great. Yes.
Okay. There are the 5 stages of grief, and this was brought in by, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Her name escapes me right now. Do you remember the name of the person who wrote the book, The 5 Stages of Grief?
I can find that
Oh
out for
God.
you while you talk about it. Go ahead and you can go ahead
Okay.
and talk about it.
Okay. Stages of grief. The first one is denial, stage one. Some people will pretend that the loss or the change isn't even happening. And denying it will give the person time to more gradually absorb the news and begin to process it. And this is a common defense mechanism, and it just helps numbs the person against the intensity of the situation. So the person is just saying, no, that didn't happen. I don't know what's going on, but I haven't lost anything. And this is just a way of just saying, okay, I need more time. You know, their subconscious saying that. Stage two is anger. Now, when a person gets to stage two, they're often using this as a mask. The anger is hiding some of the emotions and the pain that the person is carrying. The person's rational brain may know that whatever the object is of their anger isn't to blame, but their feelings in the moment are just too intense to feel that. And the anger can come in the form of bitterness or resentment. And now, as a result, the anger can subside and the person can begin to think more rationally, but this is going to take time. This is a process that's going to take time, and nobody can put a limit on it. And it was explained in the article I read that you don't have to go in the exact order of the stages. You may be angry, and then you have to go back to denial, or you go to a different stage. But stage three is bargaining. Now, during this period of grief, a person may just feel vulnerable and helpless. And during this time, when they say, well, I feel it, but the emotions may be very intense. The person may look for ways to regain control or want to feel that he or she can affect the outcome of the event. So, a lot of things that go on in this stage is they may say, well, what if I had done something differently? Or if only I had been there, to make the situation different. And bargaining, again, is a line of defense against the emotions people feel with grief. It helps a person postpone that sadness and the confusion and the hurt they may be experiencing as a product of the grief. We move on to stage four, and that's depression. And that's more or less self explanatory because you're going to feel all kinds of sadness when you lose something. And at this point, after the loss, a person may run into emotions and just try and stay a step ahead of them. They really don't want to identify with what's going on. And wherever that person stops, the depression may feel like the landing point for that loss. And they may feel stuck or seem like they can't move forward anyway. And this is where a mental health expert may be able to help that person to move forward. A therapist can help the person work through that period of coping. And that's what we need to look forward to, coping and healing as far as the end result of grief. And the last and final stage is acceptance. This stage doesn't mean that the person has moved past the grief or loss. It just means that he or she has accepted what has happened. And they come to understand that what it means in their life at this time. The person who is affected has had a major change in their life, and that has more or less upended the way he or she feels about many things going on right now. And acceptance can be seen as a way for that person to become more acclimated towards making their days better. But if they have bad days, that's still okay. Okay. And they'll be able to accept what's going on.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that when people learn more about the stages of grief, it just helps them be able to put some language to the
Yeah,
emotion. Yeah, I think.
exactly. Okay. And again, as I said earlier, you're not going to, it's not linear. You're not going to just go from the first stage through the fifth. You're just going to, it may be like a roller coaster. You just don't know where you're going to be, but you have to accept the fact that grief deals with your feelings and you cannot deny those feelings. You have to let them come out one way, shape, or form.
So a lot of times people, I think, are afraid. I hear a lot of people talk about the fear of allowing those emotions to come out, almost like a
Mhm.
fear of not being able to function in a normal way.
Exactly.
Say to someone that feels that way.
And a lot of people feel like it's fear. They feel like once they open up, they won't be able to stop. But again, you have to let all of these feelings come out because they won't go away by themselves. Feelings are not going to dissipate. You're going to have to let them come out. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to show that you're upset, do it appropriately. But, you have to let all your feelings come out and all your emotions show. Um, I Personally, the only losses I've gone through right now is like everybody else with what's happening with the pandemic and everything. And I think, along with a lot of other people, I'm sensing a loss of security. I don't know what's going to happen next. And this is called anticipatory grief. You just really don't know what's going to happen. It's you just know that there's something bad in our environment, but you just don't know how or when it's going to manifest next. And that's going to just keep you on edge all the time. You really don't know what's happening.
So this is a great point. It's going to segue into this conversation about collective grief. Like you said, that's been created because of the pandemic. In terms of the holidays, why do you think that's such a sensitive time? Like, what are some of the reasons why people are so triggered? And what?
Well, the holidays in the past have meant just so much to us. This is where families will come together, all kind of festivities. You really look forward all year long. Okay, it's not going to happen the same way this year, and that's going to cause a lot of grief. The holidays can produce many triggers, especially for people who have recently gone through other losses. Okay, we can look at other losses in the form of jobs, um, finances, even residential problems. We have so many losses. You really just can't understand what's going to happen. And this year has been outstanding in the terms of loss. And all we can do is wonder is what will happen next. I mean, it sounds like doom and gloom, but realistically, I mean, we have a virus here that we have never encountered before And the scientists really are working very hard for a vaccine. And we don't know what's going to happen in terms of that. It's just a lot of unexpected and a lot of, um, oh, how can I put it? Unexplained endings. We don't know what to end. There you go again. Anticipatory grief. We don't know what to expect.
Great.
So for Christmas, it's going to be extremely painful this year with so many people losing different things in their lives. The family gatherings will undoubtedly cause a lot of insurmountable pain right now. Finding help to get through these painful times will occur, but will definitely be different. There will be little face to face therapy going on. Group supports aren't going to happen, but we can do this via telemedicine and Zoom, but it's just not going to be the same. And people are going to have to get used to a new normal. It's going to be a different routine until we don't know.
This is a great point. The fact that grief is something we experience anytime there's a loss. And right now we are experiencing a loss of normalcy. We're experiencing a loss of loved ones due to
Yeah,
COVID-19. We're experiencing job loss. People are losing their health. There's so many losses. So there's grief
exactly.
being experienced for so many different reasons.
Right. And as far as the health, medically, we're just so confused. We don't know what's going on. The days of going into the ER, just for treatment for something really minor, is over. You just can't go there anymore. They won't let you come in. So what are you supposed to do? And our thoughts of getting medical help is slowly eroding. You know, um, I got up this morning and I had a little congestion and sniffling. So, oh gosh, I'm afraid to tell anyone that I may be developing a cold.
Right. Where in the past it would have been no big deal,
Right,
particularly this time
exactly.
of year.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I know you shared with us the 5 stages of grief, and if anyone wanted to just look up that model, it's the Kubler-Ross model. Um,
Yes,
she
yes,
is a psychiatrist, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler. Am I saying it right?
yes,
Ross
you are. Yes.
developed
And I
this.
have that information. Oh, here it is. And also, there's a very good article online. I have it here. The discomfort that you're feeling is grief. Yeah, that was an excellent, excellent article
Yeah, I
because,
was. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was actually going to say.
Okay, because you have to realize that grief just comes in, you can grieve over anything: loss of a relationship, loss of a pet, loss of a job, loss of anything. And you have to go through different stages of grief. Um, I find that going through different information about how to cope, I can go over that information with you, if you feel that will be helpful for people right
Before,
now.
before you get to that, I was going to share this quote from the article that you just referenced. The that discomfort you're feeling is grief. One of
Yes.
our staff from South Suburban Family Shelter shared this article with us in the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone had just their own aha moment because it really put language to what everyone was experiencing. And it was written by Scott Birinato. And one of the quotes in the article says, um, he says, he explains that even in this worldwide crisis, we can apply what we know about the 5 stages of grief. He
Mm-hmm.
wrote, there's denial, which we say a lot of early on. This virus won't affect us. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's anger. You're making me stay home and taking away my activities. Then there
Yes.
was
Mhm.
bargaining. Okay, if I social distance for 2 weeks, everything will be better, right? Then there's sadness. I don't know when this will end. And finally, there's acceptance. This is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed. So
Exactly.
he
That
applied it.
sums it up. Mm-hmm.
Yep, he
Yeah.
applied the 5 stages really well. So
Yes, you did.
before you go into the coping, can you tell us how can grief be compounded by in this season or in this time for those that are also experiencing domestic violence or have experienced
Okay.
domestic violence?
All right. As far as domestic violence, um, I did some research, and I came across a term that I was really not even familiar with. It's about unrecognized loss that can occur with people who are experiencing domestic violence, and it is called disenfranchised grief. And it has been defined as grief that is either not or cannot openly be acknowledged, socially validated, or publicly supported. It says situations
Good.
included in this definition is the loss of a relationship, such as those in the form of intimate partner violence. Most losses associated with intimate partner violence go unrecognized and unacknowledged, mainly due to social norms. Now that packed a wallop, didn't it?
Yes, it did. You just said a
Yes,
mouthful.
yes, yes.
Wow.
And there was an article in the Huffington Post by Kay Huckstad, and his quote said, "Society as a whole doesn't acknowledge the reality of abuse."
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Hmm. Yeah.
My
So,
goodness.
so victims grieve over the loss of control over their own lives. They can find themselves in a relationship that provides very little opportunity for self expression, self advocacy, or self love. And other losses occur gradually during the course of the relationship, such as a sense of safety and security, the loss of independence, and the loss of self esteem. That's powerful, isn't it? Hmm.
That was actually really profound to have it framed
Yes.
in this way. And even though we do this work every day, to have it framed from the lens of grief like that. Oh, you can't hear me?
Uh-uh.
Can you hear me better now?
Now, yes.
Yeah, to have this work framed, through the lens of grief,
Hmm.
that's absolutely very powerful. It really, really, I think, gives us a great perspective into the experience of a domestic
Yeah,
violence victim.
exactly. I mean, you think about the victim. She's lost. And I have to make a disclaimer now. I'm sorry. I will say she or he. And I am in no way discounting the reality of male victims
Right.
in intimate partner relationships, but it's
Exactly.
just that I have a habit of saying she because I'm always dealing with female
Right.
clients.
Right.
Right. Mhm. But you think about it, the victim is just going through loss, so many types of loss in an intimate partner violence relationship. I mean, it's insurmountable. It's just, I
It's a
don't know.
lot. That's a
Mhm.
lot to experience. And so I'm glad that we're giving voice to that today, through this
Yes.
interview right now. And so if anyone is watching or knows someone that's walking through this particular time in history, because we're experiencing collective grief, it's also the holidays. If you're also in a situation or intimate partner relationship where experiencing domestic violence, that's layers of grief and layers
Yes.
of
Hmm.
emotional
Right.
pain to walk through. So what can a person do? What are coping skills? How does one heal? How does one climb through and mitigate all of that?
Okay, first and foremost, and I'm coming from a counseling standpoint, of course, acknowledge and accept your feelings. Okay, they are real. A lot of people like to either suppress or um, just not even acknowledge what's going on with them, but they are valid. These are your feelings.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
if the feelings are suppressed, dealing with them later won't be any easier. Feelings have to have a way of coming out. And they can come out in the form of anger, sadness, confusion, loneliness, frustration, disbelief, fear, and the list goes on. However, when you talk about your feelings, and this, I love this, when you talk about them, they become less overwhelming and less scary. Okay. And sometimes you have to remember that feelings will not go away on their own, but if not acknowledged and dealt with, they will only cause problems later. Okay. The next thing you have to do is mourn your loss. Okay. And we each mourn differently, just as grief is different for us. Okay. And steps to take include accept the reality of the loss, experience and process that pain that is involved. And I think we don't talk about the pain as much as we should, because when there's a loss, there will be pain. You have to look at the productive activities you want to initiate in the future. Get a routine, start doing something. And when you realize that your environment is really getting chaotic and the work is just sort of getting to you, you don't know what to do, that routine will come in very helpfully. If you have a mixture of social and physical and some educational components to help you get through all of this on a regular basis.
That's so good.
Most importantly, practice self care. Okay, start caring about yourself. Okay, focus on the basics first, like eating a nutritional meal several times a day. Okay, staying hydrated and getting enough rest, including sleep. You know, yeah. And a lot of people can't sleep 7, 8 hours, but the more sleep you have, the more you're going to heal. Okay.
So
Um,
go ahead.
mhm.
Did you have another
Yeah.
tip?
Okay. I was just going to say, connect with people who bring you comfort. Okay. Look for those people that you can, feel good being around. Even with Zoom, okay, you can find people who will provide you some compassion. Okay. But focus on what you want to do instead of going along with the plans of other. In this process, you still have to set healthy boundaries. Okay.
This is so much good information, Alberta. Like
Mhm.
amazing. Um, for those that have, because we know domestic violence, the whole um goal of the abuser is to gain power and control over the life of the victim.
Mhm.
So if someone is in that situation and they are limited in their ability to like you said, just exercise that level of personal agency, what can they do? How can they somehow find time for the self-care? Like what would you tell someone who is still in the relationship and trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to stay safe, but also work through their emotions of grief and loss, specifically?
I would want that person to try and reach out to someone who can help them, at that particular time. Uh, by all means, safety is paramount. If she is she or he is unable to go out, hopefully they can have someone they can access on Zoom or via phone. But what I want to express specifically is the safety aspect. You know, I don't know if it could happen right now with so many abusers in the household, but whatever that person can do, seek out someone they can talk to get some suggestions. Okay. I mean, I would be really happy if somebody would call here just to talk about what's going on, you know? If
Exactly.
I could refer them on to get some help, you know, if they can come out and talk about it. Well, talk over the phone. I know it's hard to come out right now, but just find someone who can help you. Talk about your feelings. Ask someone to listen to you. Okay?
That's so imperative and important. I think especially when you're overwhelmed,
Yes.
because this can be overwhelming and a lot to try to figure out on your own. So I'm sure our staff. Oh, you can't hear me. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. I'm sure our staff are going to include the numbers for our 24-hour hotline and
Yeah.
for Southside Connections. But I'll just say the Southside Connections number. If you're watching this, like Alberta mentioned, she would be happy to talk to you, help you navigate what you're experiencing. And that office number, she can be reached at 773-697-3272. That's the Southside Connections office number. And
Right.
I'm sure our staff, or you can also look at our Facebook page and find the 24-hour hotline number as well.
Right.
And there's someone there to answer the phone literally 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Someone is going to be there to take your call and to
Right.
hear what you're experiencing and to make sure that you get the support that you need. Um, Gosh, I had another question, Alberta. This is
Mm-hmm.
so good. This is such great information that you shared. I think that, well, I'll share my personal experiences. I mentioned to you before that I lost my husband in the year 2017 because he had a heart condition.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that happened, I started to write about um, like my grief process, but also my life with him and the things I had learned about life and love and legacy. And people were so impacted by the things I was writing. A lot of people suggested to me that I write a book. People were so impacted. They were like, you should do a YouTube channel. You should do this. You should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this birthed an organization that I founded called Grace and Grief. And so that's like my other hustle
Oh, okay.
in addition to domestic violence
Well, it's a
work.
good one.
It's
Okay.
a good hustle. And so I just had the honor of talking to so many people that are navigating grief and loss. And I just want to share some of the things that helped me personally in case those things may help someone else that sees this video.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And one of those things is, or the things I've learned through doing this work with Grace and Grief. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things is just that I think that it was so powerful for people for me to share because a lot of times we go into the shadows when we're experiencing grief and you don't
Right.
hear people
Mm-hmm.
share because it takes a lot of vulnerability, like the courage to be vulnerable
Right.
about personal things. I think that is so embedded in my personality. That didn't occur to me. So I just was doing it out of my personality
Mm-hmm.
bent. But it touched people because it validated where they were. And so I think that this interview also has that power, like just to validate people's experiences, just to know, as you mentioned, if you're on a roller coaster of emotions, hey, that's normal when you're going through
Mm-hmm.
grief.
Exactly.
You're not
Right.
crazy, you're not weird, that it's not linear. As you mentioned, you may be angry one day, bargaining the next,
Right.
sad one moment, and then back to acceptance, and then all over again
Mm-hmm.
through the cycle. in a nonlinear way. And so just to
Right.
normalize that, and then also to normalize, like you're saying, therapy and reaching out to counselors, reaching out to community, and those that, like you mentioned, help you feel good during this time, to
Mhm.
normalize that. Because a lot of times people try to do things on their own. They try to figure it
Right,
out on their own.
exactly. Mhm.
Um,
Right.
I was also greatly comforted just by books about grief. Like sometimes
Mhm.
people were mailing me and my children books about grief all the time, and we were really comforted through reading other people's experiences and reading literature about it, watching YouTube videos, and
Mhm.
hearing talks about it. Just all the information. Just I found comfort in that. Um, and I think that the other thing that we didn't mention was also grief around those who may live alone, grief for those that live
Oh,
alone.
yes,
I think we didn't really
loneliness.
talk about,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, yeah. And I find that a lot of people will want to disconnect and be by themselves, thinking that no one else will want to uh, be with them at a time such as this, but that's totally wrong. They need to reach out, and no one can help you if they don't know you need help. You have to verbalize that you're looking for help. Ask for help. That's is nothing wrong with that. You know, it may make you feel vulnerable, but so what? We have to look at the benefits of it. You know, and hopefully there's some good ones too.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
people end up, I think, in loneliness sometimes because of, it could be because of widowhood, but also empty nesters. I know my
Yeah.
mom, she always tells how when I left her college, how she just became so sad during that time.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that's also a phenomenon. People that are at home alone because the kids have grown up and left.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think we can go to the chat. Zach, are there any questions for us in the comment section?
Yes, it looked like we had two questions. All right, I'll go to the one that was asked first, which was, how can a person be of help during this time to support family and friends that are grieving? It's so different now with the pandemic.
Right.
Great question.
Yes, it is. Um, I think a person would have to really just put themselves out there and let it be known that they are available for help. Um, Something I like to do, and I have to start doing it a little more often, is just performing random acts of kindness. You know,
That's
just
exactly what I
if
was
you,
going to say. Exactly what I was going to say. We
yeah, yeah.
underestimate that.
Oh, yes, yes. You know, it's just, I mean, you just get a good feeling when you see that you can help someone, you know. And I've had people help me just out of the clear blue sky. And I see it as a way of just passing it on. That's all, you know. So we have to just be available to give help when you see it's needed.
That is such a great point, and I hear that point made a lot. Talking to people that have lost loved ones, every little thing matters. There's nothing too small. So even if you stand outside the window because you're social distancing and just,
Mm-hmm.
hey, and I'm not even come in. I was just thinking about you, and I have left you some groceries at the door, or mailing something in the mail, or sending
Right.
money, or shoveling snow,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
taking somebody's car to put some gas in the car, get the oil changed, or just anything, all kinds of things, a Starbucks
Right.
gift card, just letting people know you're thinking about them. Um, yeah, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Random acts of kindness is plays, I think, a huge role for a person that's experiencing loss.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think. Are there some other things? I think too, just being available, like you said, Alberta, to make a phone call and just be around, even if you can't
Right.
be physically together. Yeah, but just making a
Right.
phone call,
And
having a Zoom call.
right. And just to hear someone say, well, I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
I wanted to call to see if you were okay. We don't know what that would do for a person,
Huge. And even
Mhm.
sending social media message like a DM on Facebook Messenger. Hey, I was just thinking about you. And like I said, people mailed me books, all music, all kinds of things. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. Great question. Zach, what's the next one?
Okay, next question is, there are a lot of barriers to leaving a violent relationship. Is it possible that individuals may stay with their partner during this time because of them possibly grieving during the holidays?
Mm,
Hmm.
good
Hmm.
question.
Yes, excellent question. Yes, well, I would say first and foremost, safety is the main element. How safe are you in that relationship? Um, if you find that the physical portion of the relationship is getting to a point where your life is in danger, um, I would suggest that you call the police and do what you need to do afterwards, be it go to a friend's house or go to a shelter or whatever. But if you stay in the relationship because of COVID and what's going on, you have to assess how is this working for you right now. This is yeah, COVID is horrible, but yet and still, what's going to happen to you in the long run? You have to put yourself first, really. After you think about it, at some point in time, you have to find out what is the best way for you to proceed in a situation like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think just to reiterate again, if someone is experiencing domestic violence, our advocates will help you develop a safety plan. If
Yes.
you want to stay in the relationship, they will help you to create a plan to stay safe in the relationship. And so it's helpful to get someone who is trained in domestic violence to help you think through and process that and to develop some type of strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. And the plan has to include the children as well. I mean, all you have to have a very intense plan because just because of COVID right now, that's the abuser is still of the mindset of manipulation, power, and control. So that's where intense safety plan is going to have to come into play. Yeah.
Great. Absolutely. Zach, are there any other comments? Any other questions?
That looks like it's it for the questions.
Mm.
So, Alberta, did you have any final words or any information that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Um, Actually, I did have a couple of websites I'd like to recommend. One is called betterhelp.com, and the other one is for those people who would like a spiritual context, findchristiancounselor.com. And through the American Counseling Association, I found a couple of resources. There's Okay, it's a crisis text line. You text home to 741-741. But I think this is just as relevant as our hotline. So I would rather that you would go through our DV hotline on that one, you know. And I have the number to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That's 800-273-8255. So, yeah, these are some resources you can think
Those are
of.
great resources. I'll
Mhm.
also add griefshare.org.
Okay.
Different community organizations have grief share meetings where they have maybe like a 7 week facilitated group session or support group for those that have experienced loss. And they have them all over the nation. So when you go to griefshare.org, you just put in your zip code and they will show you the nearest ones. And maybe because of the pandemic, they're happening virtually, but it's worth looking into as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
those are great, Alberta. Those are absolutely amazing resources. So I think we did a lot. Like there was a lot covered in this one interview. So thank you so much. You gave like the meat and potatoes behind grief, and some amazing insight, resources, perspective, even terminology and language. Especially, I was especially impacted by the disenfranchised grief.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that
I would
anticipation.
suggest, yeah, everybody look at that. I mean, it's just so many different losses that aren't recognized. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember even when I think it was Angela interviewed a person that had gone through our sanctuary program,
Mm-hmm.
and had finished our sanctuary program, and the woman mentioned that she realized that she hadn't been able to spend as much time with her children because she was experiencing domestic violence. And I
Right.
think that even that loss of opportunity as a parent probably
Mm-hmm.
could be a source of grief.
Sure.
Yeah, because she felt like she couldn't really be the mom and give them the attention that she wanted to while she was in the relationship. So I just think there's just layer upon layer. So that
Of course. And along the same lines, children go so fast. They're 5 years old one day and they're 15 the next week, and just losing all of that time with them. That is a great loss.
exactly. So again, don't go through this alone. You're not alone.
Right.
There's so many resources. Reach out to our agency, reach out to some of the resources that we mentioned today. Go through your grief process. Don't be afraid to experience it. Don't be afraid to go through the stages that Alberta mentioned today. Don't be afraid to reach out and just be honest about what you're experiencing, in as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and to take care of yourself, to really try to
Exactly.
prioritize the self-care, during this time. So Alberta,
And,
thank you. Go ahead.
and I was just going to say, find someone to talk to, be it professional or non-professional, but someone that you can just lay all of your feelings out in front of them. Feelings will not go away. And thank you, LaSandra. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. So thank you, Zach. Thank you, Alberta. Join us again next Tuesday, 2 p.m. for What's the Tea? Same time, same place, different tea. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.